Hey everybody, Mrs. Bazicki here, and I am going to be sharing with you today my recipe for pumpkin bread. This is my own recipe that I made by kind of combining other recipes that I have tried in the past. I hope that you enjoy it, and I'm going to go through the process step by step. And yeah, I love pumpkin bread, so I hope that you love it as well. Alrighty, so before we start, I'm just going to pull up my recipe card. It's right here. And I've enclosed a picture of this as well so that you guys can actually see what we need. But if you can see it, I need to have a can of pumpkin, or if you're using fresh pumpkin, it's about a cup, 2 eggs, half a cup of vegetable oil, third a cup of water, H2O, of course, science, right? 1.5 cups of white sugar, 1 3/4 cups of flour, a teaspoon of baking soda, and a half a teaspoon of salt. Then finally, 1 to 2 teaspoons of pumpkin pie spice. If you don't have something like that, you can make your own by simply just mixing some cinnamon and some nutmeg. Pretty easy. Alrighty. And then here's all the stuff kind of laid out. And then some equipment that I'm going to need are a measuring cup. All right. Some dry measuring cups. They're different. This is actually a liquid measuring cup. Dry measuring cups, some measuring spoons, a whisk to mix, a good old-fashioned wooden spoon, and a bowl. And then I also am gonna need a bread pan. Now, if you want to make this as muffins instead of as bread, you can do that. You just have to make it into 12 individual muffins. When you do that, you want to bake it a lot less time. So for us, we're going to bake this bread for about 45 to 60 minutes. For the muffins, you want to do about 20 to 25 minutes. So just keep that in mind. So first thing I'm going to do is take my bread pan, and I'm going to take my non-stick spray. Just going to spray that. You want to do a pretty good job spraying it. And it's going to seem like overkill, but if you don't spray it enough, you're definitely going to be trying to hack your bread out of there, like scrape it out with a knife. So you want to make sure that you spray it really well. Then I'm going to just kind of set that aside, put it on the counter, put that away. And then I'm going to start mixing my stuff in a bowl. So I'm going to take my bowl, and we usually start with wet ingredients. So to do that, move some of this other stuff out of the way. I am going to use 2 eggs, right? 1, 2. Now before, there's a shell. Make sure you pick those out. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix those up a little bit by themselves, just because that way it kind of incorporates them better into the mixture. So I'm just going to whisk that together. That should be plenty good. Okay. Now I'm also going to add to that a half a cup of vegetable oil. If you don't have vegetable oil, you can use like canola oil is fine. Do not use olive oil. Your bread will taste disgusting. And if you don't believe me, I've done it. So don't do it. All right. You cannot substitute olive oil for vegetable oil. So I am going to measure out a half a cup. That's exactly how much I have left. Look at that. It's like I knew, right? Then I'm going to pour that in. All right. Then again, just going to give it a little stir. All right. One of the worst things you can do for breads is over mix them. Now with the wet ingredients, it's a little hard to do that because they have to incorporate, so that's fine. Once you mix in the flour, you have to do it really slow, and you want to do it so that you don't over mix. And we'll talk about that when we start. Now I'm going to get a third of a cup of water. I'm going to go over to the sink, grab a third of a cup of water. All right, that's going to go in there. And then the same deal. We're going to mix it together. All right. Doesn't look too delicious yet, but I promise it will. Okay. Alrighty. And then that, and then a pumpkin. All right, so pumpkin counts as a wet ingredient. I used canned pumpkin for this one. Woohoo, there it is. If you don't have canned pumpkin, you can use regular pumpkin. If you hate pumpkin, you can substitute pretty much anything in this recipe. So you could do banana bread. You could do I don't know, peach, apple, kind of whatever your heart desires. But you want about a cup to a cup and a half of that substance, depending on what you use. Bananas, that'd be about one, I'd say 2 really ripe bananas would be perfect. All right, so I'm going to scrape as much of that out of the can as I can get. My pumpkin. All right. Then I'm just going to mix it together again. Really trying to make sure everything is evenly distributed. So when you take a bite of this spread, you're not going to taste like pumpkin on one part and egg and all that icky stuff. All right. That looks pretty good. Okay. Okay. So my wet ingredients are done. Now I'm going to add my dry ingredients. You can do them separately, mix them in a bowl, and then put them in. I don't do that because I just don't care that much. So I'm just going to measure out each thing and mix it in. I'm going to start with my baking soda. Baking soda is really, really important because it's actually what's going to make this rise. If you don't put the baking soda in, you're going to have a really flat bread, okay? Which maybe you want that, but in this case, we don't. All right, so 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Right, there it is if you don't need to know what it looks like. Okay. And then we need a half a teaspoon of salt. I'm going to grab my half teaspoon of salt. All right, you also always want to make sure that you measure not over the bowl. Because if you accidentally like dump the entire thing of salt in there, which I have done, you're going to be trying to fish it out. So, all right, so a half a teaspoon of salt goes in there. We're going to do 1 to 2 teaspoons of the pumpkin pie spice. Now, pumpkin pie spice, again, is kind of a thing that you can buy it in the store. Open that up. Or you can just kind of make it yourself, right? It's basically just cinnamon, nutmeg. This one has allspice and ginger. But again, put it in there what you like. And I'm going to do 2 pretty big teaspoons. Normally when you measure a teaspoon, you actually level it off, but I like the spice. So I'm going to add a lot. If you're doing banana bread, you don't have to add the pumpkin pie spice. You can just do a little bit of cinnamon, or you can do kind of whatever you want to do for spices. All right, I'm going to mix that up really good for now. Just make sure I try to incorporate the spice in there. Same deal. I don't really want to overmix, just enough so that it's like kind of together. Perfect. All right. Now, 2 of the most important things, obviously, the sugar and the flour. All right, so 1.5 cups of sugar. And I like to add stuff in small amounts. So when I do this, I don't like dump the whole 1.5 cups at once. I do it in half-cup increments. So I do a half a cup, dump it in. Do a half a cup, dump it in, half a cup. All right, that way I can always add a little less. If you don't like that much sugar, because this is going to be kind of sweet, you could lessen the amount for sure. That is my oven telling me it's ready. All right, and again, just going to mix that together, kind of incorporate it. All right, it's starting to look a little more like a batter now, right? All right, put that aside. And then we're going to do the flour. And same deal. So I need 1 3/4 cup of flour. So I'm going to take this guy out for now. I'm going to do a half cup each time. And when you do flour, you actually are supposed to level it off. So I'm going to do it over the bowl just to show you. But when you do flour, you should be level or relatively level. Baking, it's kind of important to make sure you measure stuff out really well. Because if you don't, and it's not pretty close to what it should be, it can affect the texture of the food that you're making or even the taste. So that's 1, right? And I'll level them off over here. 2, 3, right? We'll do a little bit of math, right? So 3 half cups is 1.5 cups, but I need 1 3/4. So I need a 1/4 cup, actually. So I'm going to do my 1/4 cup. All right. Here we go. And now I'm going to mix that with my trusty wooden spoon. So rather than using the whisk, I'm just going to kind of mix it with the wooden spoon. I'm going to do it kind of slow. Right? You can see, you really don't want to mix it too much. Just want to mix it enough so that everything is incorporated. I love pumpkin bread. I make it a lot. It's mostly made in the fall, but since I'm home on quarantine and I get bored of, eating the same thing all the time, this is a really nice thing to make. It freezes fantastic. So if you want to make this ahead of time and freeze it, you could, double, triple the recipe. You can freeze it. Really fun. All right, so we are mixed. See how this lumpy? That's good. You want it to be a little lumpy, right? Most times you don't want it better to be lumpy, but with muffins or bread, you do. Right, and now I'm gonna pour in, of course, this isn't in the recipe, but I always put it in there anyway, some chocolate chips, about a cup, right? If you like more, put more. If you don't want chocolate chips, don't put them. Right, it's the magic of baking. You can do what you want. It's so exciting, all right? So I'm gonna just kind of incorporate those in there. All right, and that's pretty much it. So I'm gonna pour this into my baking pan. Grab my baking pan over here. Hopefully I don't spill it everywhere. All right, it's, again, make sure you spray this. Don't forget. I have forgotten many times. And then I am trying to dig the bread out, all right? And like I said, if you don't have a bread pan at home, you can make muffins out of this. So really cool. Make muffins, like go for it. And then it's kind of nice because then, you know, it's like portion control. You're only eating one at a time. Or for me, maybe 3 at a time. I don't know. All right, I'll try to get every last drop in there. Make sure it's in there. Woohoo, so satisfying, right? Gotta get all those chocolate chips in there too. I'm not losing any of those guys. All right. Okay. So that's what it looks like. We are gonna bake that in the oven at about 350 degrees for between 45 and about 65 minutes. It sounds like a big variety, but you kind of just have to watch it and see what happens. Everybody's oven's a little bit different, so mine I have to do a little bit closer to the 60 to 65 minute range. If you have a really hot oven, you might want to do only 45 minutes and test it. So let's put it in the oven and see what happens. Alrighty, so hey guys, the bread is finished and here's what it looks like. Ooh, doesn't that look fantastic? Beautiful. So I hope you enjoy and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Make the recipe if you can. And if you do, you can send me some pics of your fantastic bread. Thanks guys for watching.